You look mad. By the time he said it, I was already too tired to defend myself. You're mad again, Aaron said from the other side of the couch. I didn't answer right away. Not because I was mad, because my body felt like someone had unplugged it from the wall about an hour ago, and I was still running on whatever battery percentage was left. I had come home from work, kicked off my shoes in the doorway, and let myself sink into the couch like it was quicksand. My brain was buzzing, my feet hurt, and my eyelids felt heavier than the rest of me combined. I hadn't even turned the TV on. I was just sitting there, staring at nothing, trying to let the day drain out of my head. That's when he said it. You're mad again. I turned my head slowly and looked at him. He was sitting upright, laptop open, one leg bouncing slightly like it always did when he was nervous or bracing for conflict. His tone wasn't angry. It was cautious, defensive, like he'd already decided how this conversation was going to go. I'm not mad, I said. He sighed, not loudly, just enough to make a point. You always say that. That was the moment I felt it. Not anger, something heavier, a tired kind of sadness that sat behind my eyes and made my chest feel tight. I'm just tired, I said. I had a long day. Aaron closed his laptop, slower than necessary, like he was trying not to slam it. Okay, but you look mad. There it was, the sentence that followed me around our apartment like a ghost. You look mad. I didn't know how to explain that my face, when left alone, apparently defaulted to something that scared the people I loved. I leaned my head back against the couch and stared at the ceiling. I don't know what you want me to do about my face. He laughed, but it wasn't relaxed. It was the kind of laugh people do when they're trying to keep things light, even though they feel a shift happening underneath. I'm just saying it feels like you're upset with me. I'm not upset with you, I said again. But you're quiet. Yes. And you're not smiling. Because I'm exhausted, I thought. Because my brain is replaying 15 things at once. Because my body hurts. Because I don't have the energy to perform happiness right now. Out loud, I said, I don't have to be smiling all the time. I know that, he said quickly. I'm not saying you do. When you get like this, I don't know where I stand. That landed harder than I expected. I turned toward him fully then. What do you mean, where you stand? He shrugged. I don't know if you're mad at me, or if I did something, or if you're about to bring something up. I stared at him. So, me being quiet makes you anxious? He hesitated. Yeah. Something clicked, slow and uncomfortable. This wasn't about my mood. It was about his fear of it. I sat up a little, hugging one knee to my chest. Aaron, I'm allowed to be quiet. I know, he said, but it feels like you're pulling away. I'm pulling inward, I said. There's a difference. He didn't answer. His jaw tightened slightly like he was deciding whether to say something or swallow it. I watched him and realized this wasn't the first time we'd had this conversation. Not exactly like this, but close enough. Different words, same tension. Every time I got tired, he got nervous. Every time I went quiet, he assumed distance. Every time I needed rest, he read rejection. I stood up and walked into the kitchen, mostly because sitting still felt too heavy. I poured myself a glass of water and leaned against the counter. Behind me, I heard him say softly, "It just feels like you're mad at me a lot lately." That's when I felt the sting behind my eyes. A lot? I repeated. He came into the kitchen and stopped a few feet away, hands shoved into his pockets. Not mad, just unhappy. I turned around. Aaron, I work 10 hours a day. I commute, I come home and cook half the time. I'm tired. That doesn't mean I'm unhappy with you. He rubbed the back of his neck. I know that logically, but emotionally? He didn't answer, and that silence told me everything. I took a slow breath. I don't know how to keep reassuring you when nothing is wrong. I'm not asking for reassurance, he said quickly. You are, I said gently. You're just not calling it that. He frowned. So what? I'm supposed to just ignore it when you seem upset? I'm asking you to trust me when I tell you I'm not. He looked down at the floor. It's hard. That word. Hard. It was hard for him to sit with uncertainty. It was hard for him to let silence exist. It was hard for him to believe that not everything was about him. And it was hard for me to realize that my natural state, quiet, introspective, tired, felt like a threat to the person I loved. I took another sip of water, my throat tight. I don't want to feel like I have to manage your emotions when I'm exhausted. His head snapped up. I'm not asking you to manage them. But you are, I said softly. You're just not calling it that. He frowned. So what? I'm just supposed to sit with it? I'm asking you to trust me when I tell you I'm not. He looked down at the floor. It's hard. That word. Hard. It was hard for him to sit with uncertainty. It was hard for him to let silence exist. It was hard for him to believe that not everything was about him. And it was hard for me to realize that my natural state, quiet, introspective, tired, felt like a threat to the person I loved. I took another sip of water, my throat tight. I don't want to feel like I have to manage your emotions when I'm exhausted. His head snapped up. I'm not asking you to manage them. But you are, I said softly. You're just not calling it that. He frowned. So what? I'm just supposed to sit with it? I'm asking you to trust me when I tell you I'm not. He looked down at the floor. It's hard. That word. Hard. It was hard for him to sit with uncertainty. It was hard for him to let silence exist. It was hard for him to believe that not everything was about him. And it was hard for me to realize that my natural state, quiet, introspective, tired, felt like a threat to the person I loved. I took another sip of water, my throat tight. I don't want to feel like I have to manage your emotions when I'm exhausted. His head snapped up. I'm not asking you to manage them. But you are, I said softly. You're just not calling it that. He frowned. So what? I'm just supposed to sit with it? I'm asking you to trust me when I tell you I'm not. He looked down at the floor. It's hard. That word. Hard. It was hard for him to sit with uncertainty. It was hard for him to let silence exist. It was hard for him to believe that not everything was about him. And it was hard for me to realize that my natural state, quiet, introspective, tired, felt like a threat to the person I loved. I took another sip of water, my throat tight. I don't want to feel like I have to manage your emotions when I'm exhausted. His head snapped up. I'm not asking you to manage them. But you are, I said softly. You're just not calling it that. He frowned. So what? I'm just supposed to sit with it? I'm asking you to trust me when I tell you I'm not. He looked down at the floor. It's hard. That word. Hard. It was hard for him to sit with uncertainty. It was hard for him to let silence exist. It was hard for him to believe that not everything was about him. And it was hard for me to realize that my natural state, quiet, introspective, tired, felt like a threat to the person I loved. I took another sip of water, my throat tight. I don't want to feel like I have to manage your emotions when I'm exhausted. His head snapped up. I'm not asking you to manage them. But you are, I said softly. You're just not calling it that. He frowned. So what? I'm just supposed to sit with it? I'm asking you to trust me when I tell you I'm not. He looked down at the floor. It's hard. That word. Hard. It was hard for him to sit with uncertainty. It was hard for him to let silence exist. It was hard for him to believe that not everything was about him. And it was hard for me to realize that my natural state, quiet, introspective, tired, felt like a threat to the person I loved. I took another sip of water, my throat tight. I don't want to feel like I have to manage your emotions when I'm exhausted. His head snapped up. I'm not asking you to manage them. But you are, I said softly. You're just not calling it that. He frowned. So what? I'm just supposed to sit with it? I'm asking you to trust me when I tell you I'm not. He looked down at the floor. It's hard. That word, hard. It was hard for him to sit with uncertainty. It was hard for him to let silence exist. It was hard for him to believe that not everything was about him. And it was hard for me to realize that my natural state, quiet. Everyone has an opinion. The first person to notice something was wrong wasn't either of us. It was Maya. We were sitting in our usual corner booth at the cafe near my office, the one with the uneven table and the burnt coffee that somehow tasted better than it should. I'd barely touched my sandwich, and Maya had been watching me with that narrowed look she got when she was mentally lining up questions. You're doing that thing, she said finally. What thing? The quiet thing, she replied. But not your normal quiet thing. The heavier one. I exhaled. I didn't even realize I was doing a thing. You always say that, she said, smiling. Then her expression softened. Is it Aaron? I stirred my coffee, even though I didn't want it anymore. We're fine. She raised an eyebrow. You say fine the same way people say, I'm not mad. I snorted by myself. Don't. She leaned forward. What's going on? And suddenly, words I'd been holding back for weeks spilled out. He thinks I'm mad when I'm just tired, I said. Like constantly. Every quiet moment turns into a check-in. Every blank face becomes a problem to solve. Maya frowned. That sounds exhausting. It is, I said. I feel like I'm being emotionally monitored. She winced. Yikes. I know he doesn't mean it badly, I added quickly. It's his stuff, his past. I get that. Understanding something doesn't mean you have to carry it, she said. I looked at her. That's easy to say. True, she admitted, but still. I hesitated, then said the thing I'd been afraid to say out loud. I don't think he believes me when I tell him I'm not mad. Maya's expression changed. That's not great. He believes how it feels to him, even when it contradicts what I'm saying. She tapped her finger against her mug. So whose reality wins? I swallowed. That's what I'm scared of. She studied me for a long moment, then said, Have you asked him why your tiredness scares him more than your reassurance comforts him? I blinked. No? Because that's the real question, she said. Later that night, Aaron and I were at his sister's apartment for dinner. Small space, too many people, no real escape. His sister, Jenna, was warm and loud and affectionate in a way that filled rooms. She hugged me tightly when we arrived. You look wiped. Work killing you? I smiled faintly. Something like that. Aaron's hand tightened slightly around mine. I felt it immediately. Dinner was loud and chaotic. People talking over each other, plates clinking, someone's dog barking nonstop. I sat back, listening more than speaking, my social battery draining fast. About halfway through, Jenna leaned toward Aaron and said, not quietly, Is she okay? I froze. I'm fine, I said automatically. Aaron hesitated. She's just tired, but his tone wavered, like he wasn't sure. Jenna glanced between us. You sure? She seems upset. There it was, from someone else's mouth. I forced a smile. I promise I'm okay. Jenna shrugged. If you say so. But I could feel it now. The scrutiny, the shared look between siblings, the silent assumption that something was wrong and I wasn't saying it. On the drive home, the car was quiet. Too quiet, apparently. You didn't talk much tonight, Aaron said. I listened, I replied. You seemed distant. I stared out the window. I was overstimulated. He glanced at me. You could have told me. I shouldn't have to narrate my internal state constantly. He sighed. I just hate feeling like I'm guessing. I turned to him. Then believe me when I tell you the answer. He didn't respond. At home, the tension followed us inside like a third person. I felt embarrassed, he said finally. Why? I asked. Because my sister noticed. It made it look like something was wrong. Something was wrong, I said quietly. I was tired. He rubbed his face. You know what I mean. No, I said. I really don't. It felt like you didn't want to be there. I felt my patience slip. I went. I stayed. I was polite. I answered when spoken to. What more do you need from me? You needed me to seem happy to be there. There it was, the unspoken rule. I can't always seem happy, I said. That doesn't mean I don't care. He looked at me like he wanted to understand, but couldn't quite reach it. It feels like rejection, he said again. And it feels like erasure to me. He quieted after that. So did I. But this time, the silence wasn't neutral to either of us. It was heavy, pressurized, full of things neither of us knew how to say without hurting the other. Lying in bed that night, I thought about Maya's question. Why does your tiredness scare him more than your reassurance comforts him? And I wondered how many people would keep mistaking my exhaustion for anger before I started believing it myself. The thing that finally slipped. The thing that finally broke us didn't look like a fight. It looked like a Tuesday. I came home later than usual, the kind of late that doesn't feel dramatic, just draining. My phone battery was at 5%, my head was pounding, and all I wanted was to take my shoes off and not talk for a while. Aaron was at the kitchen table with his laptop open, half-eaten takeout pushed to the side. You didn't text, I replied, slipping off my shoes. You didn't text, he said. I got held up, I replied, slipping off my shoes. Still, he said, I didn't know where you were. I paused. I was at work. I know, he said. Usually you tell me. There it was again, the expectation. I didn't have the bandwidth, I said. He watched me carefully. You seem irritated. Something in me stilled. I'm not, I said. I'm exhausted. He leaned back in his chair. You always say that. That sentence landed differently this time. Not sharp, just final. I stared at him and realized I didn't feel defensive anymore. I felt tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. I know, I said quietly. He frowned. That's it? That's the truth, I said. He closed his laptop slowly. It feels like you don't care how this affects me. I nodded. I care. I just can't keep prioritizing your interpretation over my reality. That sounds cold, he said. It's self-preservation, I replied. We stood there, facing each other across the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator suddenly unbearably loud. You've changed, he said. I thought about that. I think I stopped shrinking, I said. He laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. So I'm the bad guy now? I didn't say that. You don't have to, he replied. Everything you're saying makes it sound like I'm too much. I took a step closer. You're not too much. You just want something I can't give constantly. And you can't give reassurance? He asked. I can, just not endlessly, not at the cost of myself. He looked at me like he was trying to memorize my face again, like something about it no longer matched the version in his head. So what happens when you're quiet? What am I supposed to do? I answered honestly, sit with it. His jaw tightened. That feels unfair. I know. It feels unfair to me too. Silence stretched between us, the same silence that had started all of this. But now it wasn't neutral. It was fully seen. Later that night, we went to bed without talking. Again. But this time, something was different. There was no tension. just distance. In the dark, I realized something that made my chest ache. He wasn't angry. He was grieving. Not me, but the version of me he thought he was entitled to. The one who explained, the one who reassured, the one who softened herself so he wouldn't feel anxious. And I was grieving the idea that love could be enough to bridge a fundamental difference in how two people existed in the world. The next day, I woke up to a message from Maya. "You okay?" I stared at my phone for a long time before replying. "I think something changed," she responded almost immediately. "Changed how?" I typed, deleted, typed again. "I don't feel like fighting anymore." There was a pause. Then, "That's not nothing." That evening, Aaron and I came home quieter than usual. He set his keys down, carefully, like he didn't want to disturb anything. "Can we talk?" he asked. I nodded. We sat across from each other on the couch, knees almost touching. "I've been thinking," he said. "So have I replied. He took a deep breath. "I don't know how to feel secure in this relationship without more from you." I didn't interrupt. "And I don't know how to ask for it without making you feel controlled, which makes me feel like maybe we're asking for different things." My heart thudded slowly. "Yes," I said. "I think we are." He swallowed. "That scares me." "It scares me too," I admitted. He looked at me, eyes glossy. "I don't want to lose you." I reached for his hand. "I don't want to lose myself." That sentence hung between us.
When love isn't the question. Once the truth was out in the open, it changed the temperature of everything. We stopped circling the same arguments, not because they were resolved, but because we both understood what they were really about now. It wasn't miscommunication, it wasn't tone, it wasn't even silence. It was need. Aaron needed constant emotional confirmation to feel safe. I needed space to exist without being interpreted. Those needs didn't cancel each other out, but they collided. The days that followed were strangely calm. We were polite, careful, like roommates who had once been lovers and weren't sure what came next. We didn't plan the conversation. It happened the way important things often do, in the quiet space after pretending stopped working. It was Sunday evening, the kind of slow, heavy Sunday where the weekend feels like it slipped through your fingers without ever really resting you. We'd spent most of the day in the same apartment doing separate things, orbiting each other without colliding. Around 7, Aaron closed his laptop and looked at me. "Can we sit for a minute?" he asked. I nodded. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, not dramatically far, just enough. "I've been thinking about what you said," he began, "about not wanting to disappear." I waited. "I don't ever want to be the reason you feel that way," he continued, "but I also don't know how to stop feeling unsafe when you pull inward." I chose my words carefully. "I don't pull inward to leave you. I pull inward to survive the day." He nodded. "I believe you." That was new. "But belief doesn't always quiet the fear," he added. "I know, and that's the part I can't fix for you." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "So what are we saying?" I took a breath that felt like stepping off a ledge. "I think we're asking each other for things that hurt us, not intentionally, but consistently." His jaw tightened. "Are you saying this isn't working?" "Yes," I said softly. The word hung between us, fragile and heavy. He swallowed. "Are you saying you want to break up?" I didn't answer right away. "I'm saying I don't know how to stay without losing parts of myself, and I don't know how you stay without feeling anxious and unchosen." He nodded slowly, eyes glassy. "That feels like the same answer." Tears slipped down my face before I realized I was crying. "I didn't want it to be," I whispered. He reached for my hand, and I let him. "I love you so much." "I love you too," I replied. We sat there, hands clasped, crying quietly, No raised voices, no blame, just grief. After a while, he said, "Do you think there's a version of this where we both feel okay?" I searched myself for the honest answer. "Not without one of us becoming smaller," I said. He nodded. "I don't want that." "Neither do I." Silence fell. Not tense, not misunderstood, just real. Finally, he said, "Then maybe loving each other isn't the same as being right for each other." That sentence broke something open in me. "Yes," I said, "exactly." We stayed there a long time after that, talking about logistics in soft, careful voices. Who would sleep where, how much time we needed, what telling people might look like. It felt surreal, like discussing the aftermath of something that hadn't fully happened yet. That night, we slept in the same bed for the last time. He wrapped his arm around me instinctively, and I let myself sink into it, knowing it wouldn't be permanent. I didn't feel relief. I felt clarity, and that somehow hurt more. After the answer. The days after we said it out loud didn't look like breakups do in movies. No shouting, no sudden packing, no dramatic exits. Just space slowly opening where something used to live. We sold ourselves we were being kind by taking it slow, by coexisting for a bit, by not rushing the ending. But the truth was simpler and harder. Neither of us was ready to fully let go. We moved around each other gently, like we were afraid of bumping into grief. Aaron slept on the couch most nights after that, not because we'd agreed to it, but because it felt like the right kind of distance. Enough to breathe, not enough to feel like strangers. In the mornings, we still said good morning, still asked about each other's day, still shared the coffee, but something fundamental had shifted. The tension was gone, and so was the closeness. One evening, as I folded laundry alone in the bedroom, I realized something that surprised me. I wasn't bracing anymore. My face was neutral, my thoughts quiet, my body tired, but allowed to be tired. No one was watching me. No one was interpreting my silence. No one was waiting for reassurance. The relief hit me so suddenly I had to sit down. And then the guilt followed right after. Because relief meant confirmation, and confirmation meant that this had to be necessary. Aaron noticed the change too. "You seem calmer," he said one night, standing awkwardly in the doorway. "I feel calmer," I admitted. He nodded slowly. "I thought so." There was no accusation in his voice, just sadness. "I think that answers our question," he added quietly. I looked at him. "I never wanted the answer to hurt you." "I know. You didn't hurt me. The truth did." We told friends slowly, selectively. Maya hugged me and didn't say I told you so. She just said, "I'm proud of you for choosing yourself." Jenna cried and asked if there was anything I could have done differently. Aaron told her no. That mattered more than I expected. Packing my things felt surreal, not rushed, not angry, just final. Each item carried a memory, a version in us that had worked until it hadn't. On my last night in the apartment, we sat on the floor eating takeout like we used to. "This was my favorite place," he said softly. "It was mine too," I replied. We sat in silence for a while. "You were never mad," he said suddenly. I looked at him. "I know," he continued. "I see it now. You were just tired, and I was scared." Tears burned my eyes. "I wish you'd seen it sooner." "So do I," he said, but there was no bitterness in his voice, just mourning. When I left, he hugged me tightly at the door. "I hope someone someday lets you be quiet without asking questions," he said. "I hope someone someday makes silence feel safe for you," I replied. We let go. Outside, the air felt colder than I expected. The world looked exactly the same and completely different. As I drove away, I realized something quietly profound. I wasn't angry, I wasn't relieved, I wasn't broken. I was just free to be tired. He stopped asking if I was mad. I stopped offering reassurance. The absence of both felt loud. One evening, as we washed dishes side by side, he said, "I miss you." I swallowed. "I'm still here." "I know, but it feels different." "It is different," I replied. He nodded slowly. "I don't like it." "I don't either," I said, "but I like pretending less." He turned off the faucet and faced me. "Do you ever think about leaving?" The question landed gently, but it still knocked the breath out of me. "Yes," I said honestly. His shoulders sagged. "Do you want to?" I thought about it. "I want to feel at peace," I said. "I don't know if leaving is the only way to get that." He looked down. "I don't know if I can give you peace without feeling like I'm losing you." That sentence cracked something open in me. "This isn't about love, is it?" I asked softly. He shook his head. "No." That hurt more than if he'd said yes. Love was the one thing we had never questioned. We loved each other deeply, genuinely. We showed up, we tried, we cared. But love wasn't fixing this. We sat on the couch that night, not touching, staring at opposite walls. "I feel like I'm always bracing," he said quietly. "And I feel like I'm always monitoring myself, making sure I don't trigger that fear." He glanced at me. "That sounds awful," he said. "It is," I said. He nodded. "For both of us." That was the first time he included himself without defensiveness. The next weekend, we went for a walk, something we used to do when things felt off. The weather was cool, the streets quiet. We walked side by side, hands brushing but not quite holding. "I talked to my therapist," he said. "Yeah?" "She asked me why silence feels like abandonment to me, and I didn't have a good answer that didn't go back to my parents." I nodded. "That makes sense." "She said it's not your job to heal that," he added. That surprised me. "What did you say?" "That I know," he replied, "but knowing and feeling are different." "Yes," I said, "they are." He stopped walking and turned to me. "If I can't change this fast enough, is that the end?" I looked at him, really looked at him, the man I loved, the man who loved me. "I don't need you to change who you are," I said. "I need you to not need me to change who I am." He closed his eyes. "I don't know if I can
Rest. The first night alone in my new place was quieter than I expected. No hum of another person's presence, no footsteps, no familiar breathing beside me, just the soft tick of a clock I hadn't hung yet, and the distant sound of traffic filtering in through a half-open window. I lay on the mattress on the floor, staring at the ceiling, waiting for something to crash into me. Grief, loneliness, regret. Instead, I felt still. My phone buzzed once. A message from Aaron. "I hope you slept okay." I stared at it for a long moment, then typed back. "I did. I hope you did too." That was all. No explanation, no emotional check-in, no performance. And it felt right. Over the next few weeks, life settled into a softer rhythm. I came home and let my keys fall onto the counter without worrying about how that sounded. I sat on the couch and stared at nothing. I let my face do whatever it wanted to do. No one asked if I was mad. Sometimes, in the evenings, the old reflex would kick in, the urge to narrate my feelings, to reassure someone who wasn't there. I'd catch myself mid-thought and smile. Old habits take time to release. Maya came over one night with wine and pizza. We sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes. "You okay?" she asked. I considered the question carefully. "Yes," I said, and meant it. "Not happy?" she teased. I laughed. "Not performing it." She raised her glass. "To rest." "To rest," I echoed. There were moments when I missed Aaron, his laugh, the way he made coffee, the warmth of his hand in mine. Love doesn't disappear just because you let it go. But the ache was clean. It didn't come with confusion anymore. One afternoon, weeks later, I ran into him by accident at the grocery store. We stood there, carts between us, smiling softly. "You look lighter," he said. "So do you," I replied. He nodded. "Therapy's hard, but good." "I'm glad," I said. We talked for a few minutes, nothing heavy, nothing loaded. As we parted, he said, "I'm learning that silence doesn't always mean loss." I smiled. "I'm learning that tired doesn't mean unloving." We walked away in opposite directions, both carrying something we didn't have before: understanding. That night, I went home and took a long shower. I let the water run until my shoulders dropped and my thoughts slowed. I crawled into bed early, phone face down, lights off. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the need to explain myself to anyone, not even in my own head. As sleep finally pulled me under, one last thought drifted through me, gentle and certain. I was never mad. I was just tired. And now, finally, I was allowed to rest.